Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm yours truly, James Hayes, intervention specialist slash health interventionist here at Man to Man, and I'm here with a special guest. I'll let my special guest introduce herself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Miesha Thomas, and I work at Caresouth Carolina. I work in a department called Care Innovations, and our responsibility is all things infectious diseases. Um, Today, I'm here to talk about men's sexual health.
Men's sexual health, and men's sexual health is very important. I'm sure many say, "Well, what does men's sexual health have to do with parenting?" But I think it has everything to do with parenting, especially when it comes down to our sexual health. It has everything to do with our overall health as well.
Most definitely.
But before we get into it, I want to remind you guys to support Papa John's. We have partnered with Papa John's, and the partnership is for the entire month of June. And if you buy a large 2-topping pizza and a 2-liter soda, $1 is donated to Man to Man. If you buy 2 large 2-topping pizzas, $3 is donated to Man to Man. Here's the deal: you have to use the promo code M2M23. That's M2M23 for the 2 large topping pizzas, and for the large 2-topping pizza and a 2-liter drink, it's M2M13. You can go to the Florence Papa John's. You can go to the two locations in Florence. That's 225 Cherokee Road and 205 C Second Loop Road in Florence. Also in Sumter and Camden. Be sure to use those promo codes to support Man to Man Fatherhood Initiative. All right, Miss Miesha, talking about men's sexual health.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to fatherhood,
Yes.
of course we know men's sexual health is important, but give us a little detail of why is it so important, or how can our sexual health be affected?
It can be affected greatly, but before, James, I just want you to give a small disclaimer before we get started.
Yes. The disclaimer, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get into some sensitive topics today. You may see some graphic pictures on the scene. We may skip over them depending on how comfortable Miss Miesha feels, but we will get into some sensitive conversations, and you will see some graphic pictures up on the screen, but it's all educational, we promise.
Thank you so much. Okay, so talking about STDs or STIs, it's a term to describe over 20 different infections that are transmitted through the exchange of semen, blood, or other bodily fluids by direct contact with an affected person with STDs.
So, in other words, you're saying we should definitely use protection when we're getting into sexual activities.
You should definitely use protection.
But what if it's a husband and his wife?
When you're in a relationship like that, you make your own rules,
Okay,
and you do
gotcha.
what's comfortable for you and your relationship. So even though maybe you're not using protection, but what you can do is make sure to get tested together and intermittently as needed.
I think that's really good when you get tested together, just to make sure there's nothing lingering, or making sure that you didn't bring anything into the relationship or the marriage. So I think that's a really good idea.
Yep. Getting tested at the beginning or the end of a relationship is always a good idea, always a good practice. So what is STDs? They can affect both males and females. A pregnant woman with an STD can cause serious health problems for the baby. And if you're a father, right, and your partner is pregnant, that's something you want to be wary of.
Now, how can it affect the baby if the mother has an STD? How does that affect the unborn child?
Unborn child, that's great. Different diseases affect the unborn child, and even the child when it's born, in different ways. Some STDs can cause blindness.
Really? Wow.
It varies on each disease.
Wow.
Okay. So there are more than 20 types of STDs. We have bacterial, parasite, and viral. If you have a bacterial or parasite STD, that can be cured. If you have a viral STD, there is no cure, but a healthcare provider can help you treat those symptoms. And just because you can get rid of STD does not mean you can't get reinfected.
Okay.
So
Well, I was going to ask you, where are the testing sites, or how can we get treated? Is there any particular places that we can go, especially in, say, Marlboro County or Dillon County, or any of the surrounding areas?
Most definitely. In Marlboro and Dillon County, you do have we do have locations in Marlboro and Dillon County. Here in Bennettsville, Lakeview, Latta, and Dillon, and then also your local health department. They are always open for testing as well.
Okay. And is that testing free, or is there a charge for it? How does that work?
So testing is free. STD testing is free. I will say that.
STD testing is free. Gotcha.
All right. So some general symptoms. How would you know if you had an STD? Well, there might be some redness or some soreness of the genitals. There might be some pain during urination, or some cloudy or strong smelling urine. These are all signs that you probably need to get checked out. If you have an unusual discharge from the penis or the vagina, you should get checked out. If there's any sores or blisters around the genitals, excessive itching or rash, or any pain or discomfort during sex, you should get checked out.
Okay. Now, a lot of men, okay, it's hard for us to admit when something is wrong. We rarely go to the doctor anyway. So if we have some issues going on downstairs, and we're embarrassed, or we just kind of want to tough it out.
Right.
What would be your suggestion? Or I know the obvious.
Right.
But how could you make males feel more comfortable getting medical attention?
Okay. Any type of pain, you're gonna feel uncomfortable, and you're gonna want to know what's going on, right? So any type of pain, no matter how many other little home remedies you think you can take to ease that pain, these things will persist, like abdominal cramping, a slight fever, or overall sick feeling, and if you don't, the consequences could be some things as strong as sterility. So when you have a consequence in mind and you have a pain, you weigh your options and see what you need to do.
Now, having some of those issues that you just talked about, could that prevent us from having children, or being able to impregnate the female with some of those issues that you just talked about?
Yes, in the long run, any STD gone untreated, not any STD, but most STDs gone untreated for a period of time can cause those type of issues. Not to mention, if whoever your partner is, right? If you're going to be engaging in intimate relationship where sex is involved, then that person they'll have symptoms too, right? They'll come to you and they'll let you know, and so you want to take care of it for you first. You first.
And for the sake of the relationship.
And the relationship.
I'm sure there's going to be some issues.
Right. I don't know how much longer she'll hang around.
Absolutely.
But if you or your partner has any symptoms, you both should get checked out. Sometimes you may have the symptoms and your partner may not, or vice versa, but you both should get checked out, especially if you're in a sexual relationship.
Right. And so, say if one day I'm feeling sick and I got a slight fever and I'm not feeling well, how do I know I should get checked for an STD or I should get checked for the flu?
Okay. Well, then you can say, hey, have I been sexually active, right? And when was the last time I got tested? And are there any other symptoms present? You should get tested intermittently anyway. So if you're having those feelings and you haven't got tested recently, that should just be one of those things that you add to the list. And when you go to the doctor and say, hey, I got checked for everything and everything came back negative, no, you need to specifically ask for certain tests, because doctors, they don't test for everything.
Got you. So I got a question from one of the folks who are watching the video.
Okay, great.
HIV.
Yes.
That's a pretty hot topic.
Okay.
And when it comes to and they're concerned, if you have the HIV and you're taking medications for it, is it still possible to give that HIV to your partner? Or should you continue to use protection when it comes to sexual activity?
Okay. So, well, first thing, It's all about the comfort level and the conversation and trust you have with your partner, and where you guys comfort level as far as using protection and not using protection. But first, let me say you equals you. So right, if a HIV positive person is undetectable, that means they are untransmittable. That means that the virus is so low in their body that they're not able to transmit the disease. Now that is approved by CDC.
Okay.
All right. So if you have a partner, you want to encourage them to be on their medication and go to their appointments, because it's not like before. It's not a death sentence at all. It's very manageable. Very manageable.
Got you.
Did I answer all of that question?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess because what they're wondering is, I guess feeling comfortable enough to talk to their partner, but at the same time, should that conversation even take place if you're taking medication?
Well, most definitely the conversations should take place, but to each his own in their comfort level, right? But the conversation should take place when you know you're positive with any type of STD. And then also, if you're an HIV negative person, there is a pill called PrEP. PrEP is the pill that an HIV negative person can take once a day to prevent the transmission of HIV as well.
Now that I did not know.
Well, awesome.
so you just popped that one on me just now. So let me make sure I get this correct. You said,
yes, sir.
What's the name of it? What's it?
It's called PrEP.
PrEP is a pill.
Yes.
That an HIV negative person can take to
correct.
prevent them from getting HIV.
Yes.
From an HIV positive person.
That is correct.
So literally, we can prevent HIV. It
has come a long way. It has come a long way.
Wow. And so now, how can a person get access to PrEP?
Right. So there are many PrEP clinics going around, around in specifically in Marlboro and Dillon County.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just aware of ours, but there are many other FQHCs or federally qualified health centers that have PrEP programs, and even a DHEC, if you go on their website, you can type in PrEP clinic, and it will find the nearest PrEP clinic to you.
Wow.
So there's a PrEP locator. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's make sure that we got this. You can get a PrEP pill that can literally prevent you from getting HIV from an HIV positive person. And from my understanding, there are literally clinics in South Carolina right now that you can search out and get this medications from. So that's amazing. I didn't know that. So
that's good. That's
yeah.
good. I'm glad to share that. And HIV is a viral STD.
Okay.
And viral STDs are ones that are not curable, but we're going to talk about bacterial and parasite STDs, and those are syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea, and trichomoniasis. Our viral ones are HPV, genital herpes, hepatitis, and HIV. So,
just a warning, you may see some graphic pictures behind us here.
That's correct. Just note that all these 4 STDs we're going to talk about, they can be treated and cured. You just have to use a healthcare provider for testing and treatment. All right, so syphilis, it's caused by bacteria. It comes in 3 stages. The first stage is a sore. The second stage is a rash, and then the third stage is some internal damage that may happen over time. Syphilis is you can get tested for syphilis with a simple finger prick, and the treatment is an antibiotic.
Antibiotic, okay.
Okay. Those are the stages. All right, chlamydia and gonorrhea. This is a super important topic, especially in our state of South Carolina. Okay, some common names they may call it is the clap of the drip. Gonorrhea and chlamydia, they have similar symptoms. Gonorrhea is usually worse, and they can affect all of our pink parts. So those pink parts are the anus, the eyes, the mouth, and the genitals, or the throat. Whatever has been in contact with the bacteria. Gonorrhea now, it has been increasingly resistant to the antibiotics that are prescribed to treat it. And so
that's not good.
That is not good. So we want to really keep that in mind. Really keep that in mind. In the state of South Carolina, we are ranked number 3 in the nation for chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis.
Okay. Wait a minute.
Gonorrhea, chlamydia, and syphilis, number 3 in the nation.
Number 3 in the nation. Now, okay. So why is it that South Carolina, like, how do we get to that point to where we're ranked number 3 in the nation for those 3 STDs? Is it lack of education, lack of information? Like, how do we get to be ranked number 3?
Right. So South Carolina is we have about 5 million people in the state of South Carolina, and outside of Columbia, Charleston, and the upstate, South Carolina is pretty rural. And so access to healthcare can sometimes be a challenge for some of the residents here in South Carolina. So that may be one of the contributing factors to that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know what? It seems that rule has come up literally every single week that we do health. We talk about health.
Oh, yeah.
Rural South Carolina has come up a lot. How do we get services to rural South Carolina? And so for folks who are from where I'm from, now for internet purposes we say rural, but if I was back home I'd say country.
Right.
So folks in the country, out in the woods, how do we get services to everybody out there or make them aware of the services available?
Okay, so in the rural areas or in the country, how do you get any information, right? It's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of, going through our faith-based avenues, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have to use those to our advantage and create some new channels while we're in there. We have to educate as many people as possible so that they're carrying back the new word, the positive word, the correct information in hopes that it will, trickle down.
You know what? I like that. So is it possible that organizations could send flyers or posters or brochures to the faith-based communities and make sure that this information is being passed out to the different individuals, passed out to different communities? Like, how hard would that be?
That's not hard at all. I definitely think that is a strategy that could work, and also just getting out there. Sometimes you have to go meet the people right where they are.
That's true.
Right? You just have to go out there.
And if you come where I am, you got to make sure you come across the field and go down the dirt road first. You're not going to get to me off the highway. You got to go across the field and down the dirt road.
Right. But there are places that people populate all the time. You have to get food, right? You have to get gas. So you have to be in those places where people are going to go for their necessities as well.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Number three.
Yes,
wow.
Number 3. But even still, individually, we are number 4 and 5 for gonorrhea and chlamydia. And these numbers are highest among women. And you might say, hey, well, why highest among women? Well, we talked about it earlier, right? How likely or at what point do men usually go and get treatment or be seen? Right?
I apologize for my reactions, but 4 and 5.
4 and 5. We're 4 and 5.
And we're only 5 million people.
Only 5 million people. Yeah. So when they do come, they come in.
And just so for people to, because we've said 5 million a good bit, and to many of you, you may say, well, 5 million is a lot of people. But just to break it down in context, the city of Atlanta, Georgia, has 5 million people. Okay.
Wow.
So South Carolina in totality has the same number of people that the city of Atlanta, Georgia has.
Exactly.
So we're saying 5 million. We're literally a small state when it comes to people.
Right.
And so for us to be ranked so high, that's a major issue.
It is.
That's a major issue.
It is. The great thing or the good thing about gonorrhea, chlamydia, it is treatable with an antibiotic. But prevention, testing, and treatment are all important. Now,
I noticed you said, well, we're not allowed to say cure, right? So it can't be cured, can it?
These 3, yes. Once it's gone, right?
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you can't get it again if you have sex with a person who's infected with this disease again, right? So bacterial And parasite ones, they can be treated, they can be cured. You can be done with it.
Okay.
Okay?
But the issue is
yes.
unprotected sexual activity. That's the issue.
That is.
Right. And so I just want to encourage all fathers to please not be participating in unprotected sexual activities outside of the home. I want to encourage all the fathers because this can affect the family. This can tear a family apart.
It can. Most definitely.
Yeah. And we want families to stay together as much as possible. And, we don't want to let this tear a family apart.
Right. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
Stay together.
Stay together.
The next one is trichomoniasis caused by parasite. Some of the same symptoms: irritation inside the penis, maldischarge, some slight burning after urination. But again, it is curable with with a prescription from the doctor.
Yeah, you have to go to the doctor for that. You can't. Okay.
No, you can't take somebody else's pills or drink this or drink no.
And I want to stress to anybody out there who's watching, you always want to seek medical advice. And with all the options that we have with telehealth, and so even if you can't get to the doctor physically, now we can telehealth, or we can talk to the doctor over the phone now.
Right.
So there's more access, especially for us out in the country, to get access to this help.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Most definitely. The second set of STDs are viral STDs. These are ones that are incurable. Incurable. The first one is HPV. So there's over 40 different types of HPV. But I keep saying the great thing, but the good thing.
Yeah, you do keep saying that.
We've come a long way, and so I'm very excited about that. I really am. HPV is some forms of it, some types of it are preventable by vaccine. And if you have a school-age child, these things are offered in the pediatrician's office now. So you can protect your child from potentially getting a form of cancer, from HPV. And even if you are an adult up to 26, you can still get an HPV vaccine. It provides immunity all the way up to 46, but the immunity decreases after 26.
So after 46, should you get another vaccine, or?
The vaccine just doesn't have the immunity capabilities after that age. But you can always talk to your healthcare provider more about that.
Okay.
But with HPV, it's the most common STD, and it usually does not cause any symptoms. Some may develop some genital warts or cancer, but there's no cure, and it can only treat symptoms. Men, there's no test for HPV, right? Which is especially important to get your sons and yourself vaccinated if you can. A woman, we get tested for HPV when we have our annual exam at the GYN.
So now, how can that go from female to male? If it's a woman can give a man cancer?
Not cancer. HPV is a disease that can cause a type of cancer. A type of cancer. And even if you might be a male coming into a relationship, and you may be a carrier of HPV and not know it, and unknowingly pass it on, to your partner. That's how common HPV is, and that's how important it is to even protect yourself more and be aware. Just be aware of your status and your partner's status before entering into, before having sex in your relationship.
That part I did not know.
Yeah,
Wow.
Super important. Again, the prevention note here is that the vaccine for girls and boys for the wart and cancer types of HPV is available, and you can talk to your healthcare provider about that. And that's just what it will look like. The next one is herpes. So a lot of people infected with herpes doesn't have any noticeable symptoms. Some people may have some outbreaks. The outbreaks may look like blisters, and the blisters can break and leave some sores, and it takes about 2 weeks to a month to heal. Reoccurring outbreaks can happen, but the most important thing about herpes is that there is no cure. You can only treat the symptoms, and so a lot of you can get herpes and not have any symptoms for a long time, right? So all the HPV and herpes is just very important to partner test before you engage in sexual activity, to know the status, know your status, and know your partner's status. Because like you said, this affects the family.
Yeah.
This affects the family.
And so you could have herpes but have no symptoms, and you can give that. So without symptoms, you can still transfer it to your partner.
That is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct.
Wow.
But you can get tested for herpes. Herpes is done by a blood test, and you can know. So testing is important. Testing is important. It's important. The next viral disease is hepatitis. There's 5 viruses identified as hepatitis that cause inflammation and damage to the liver. They have general symptoms. Something is, loss of appetite, fatigue, mouth fever, muscle joints and aches, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain. Most people don't know they have it, right? And so some things like this, even though it's easy to brush off, we should always pay attention to our body and question it. A lot of people, so many people work and have health insurance and don't use it. Use your health insurance, right?
I agree.
Use your health insurance. That's what it's there for.
And for any of our not have health insurance,
yes,
come and see me personally. You can talk to me. We have a great relationship with Caresouth.
yes.
We can see to it that you can get access to Caresouth and get some of these treatments or get the test. So no excuse. No excuse at all.
No
We will absolutely make sure that we can get you somewhere that you can get tested.
That's
Now,
right.
I understand why a lot of people wouldn't want to get tested.
Right.
Fear.
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 It
Why?
lasts this long though.
So we must overcome the fear.
we have
We
to,
must
but
overcome the fear.
again, we look at the consequence, and we look at our fear, and we look at what is our goal. Like, we want you, as fathers, you want to be there for your families. You want to create a legacy. You want to set a good example. And so, your children and your family, your community, they're paying attention to what you do and the choices that you make. And so, doing these things is setting an example. Setting an example. Yeah.
And for the fathers, it's important to set an example for your family.
Oh, yes.
Because what you do, your kids will do.
That's right.
And so if you're setting an example, you say, listen, we're going to make sure that we get tested, we get the right information so that we know our status.
Right.
Then your kids are going to feel it that important to do the same thing when they become adults and are looking to get into relationships.
That's right.
So they'll do the same thing.
That's right. They don't even have to know what you're going to the doctor for. This is just as simple as you saying, hey, I made an appointment to get myself checked out. That that just clicked something in them, like, hey, my parents used to go and get checked out just for their well-being, and so I'll do the same in turn. Talking about hepatitis, hepatitis C is curable. Hepatitis B, that's the one that we all get the 3 3 shots for. I definitely didn't enjoy getting those growing up. And hepatitis A, we had an outbreak right here in South Carolina last year. Hepatitis A is spread through drinking and eating food and water that was contaminated by an infected person. And so we went through that last year right here in South Carolina. And there is a vaccine for hepatitis A. It's 2 shots, but if you just are able to get the first one, it provides over 90% immunity. But so these viral diseases, they're out there, and we have to be aware to protect ourselves. Now, CDC used to recommend that if you're a baby boomer born between 1945 and 1965, you should get checked for Hep C. But now with the opioid epidemic, everyone should get tested for Hep C at least once in their lifetime now.
Wow.
So that recommendation has changed. In my particular department, we do offer the Hep C test absolutely free, and it's done with just a finger stick, and you'll know in 20 minutes or less.
Okay. Good information. Wow.
So we're circling back around to HIV and AIDS. That's kind of where we started out. But HIV, for definition purposes, is a human immunodeficiency virus. It's a virus that attacks our immune system, and you can't tell from the outside if a person is infected. Okay? Can't tell. You can't tell by looking. You have to get tested. So then, what is AIDS? So then AIDS is the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So once the virus has fully attacked your immune system, then you have a diagnosis of AIDS. Okay?
So, but before it attacks the immune system is just called HIV.
Was it when it fully attacks to the point where your viral load is high, and your white blood cells, which helps fight off the virus, is below 200, then you have an AIDS diagnosis. But with the treatment that's out there, you can take medicine and reverse that effect, right? You can get back to undetectable. Remember, undetectable means untransmittable. So HIV has come a very long way.
Wow.
A very long way. Most people, they don't know they're infected with HIV until they're really sick. If they're not getting their test every so often, and this is done by the HIV screen. And the earlier you catch it, the better it is for you, right? The medications that are out there now can give a person an extra 50 plus years on their life. HIV didn't used to be like this before. It came out in 1987 as a Caucasian gay male disease, right? But now they have new medications where we're living longer and having more productive lives. Like we said earlier, there's no treatment, but this I don't want to say this government campaign, but America has a plan to end the HIV epidemic by 2030.
Really? Do you happen to know the plan?
Yes, I know parts of the plan.
Can you share, please?
Well, we've talked a great deal about it, but it's to catch people early.
Mm-hmm.
It's to treat, diagnose, and respond, right? And so we're going to respond with all the tactics that we know. We have PrEP. We have PrEP, which is a pill you can take.
Mm-hmm.
We have untransmittable, means undetectable, and treatment as prevention. So if a person who is positive is taking their treatment, they are preventing the spread of HIV in the community. So
Wow.
all these tools can make it possible to end the epidemic by 2030.
Okay. So how should a father or a mother talk to their child about STDs or the prevention of STDs? If you were about to talk to your child, how would you go about that conversation? Because we have a lot of parents who are in our fatherhood, and a lot of people who are watching, and I'm sure it's an uncomfortable conversation. But how would you go about that conversation?
Well, I would dare to ask, what makes it uncomfortable about the situation? Is it because we don't feel informed or educated enough to share?
It could be, or some parents are not ready for their kids to start participating in sexual activity, so that could be another side of it. So.
Right, but just just because we're talking about it doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? You talk to
Correct.
your children
Correct.
about not stealing, about not doing things like that. Not to say that they are, but to equip them for what are the consequences if you do, right?
True.
And when
True.
we have conversations, I have a small child, but you start small by just using the right names for body parts, right? For talking about good touch, bad touch, and so your child is already accustomed to hearing you, use this language and use this term. So when they get to a point, then they're, they're okay.
Because if we don't have that conversation, I'm sure somebody else will, and it may give the wrong information, misinformation. So
most definitely.
Yeah. Even though the conversation may be uncomfortable, it's one that is needed.
It is.
It's one that is needed.
And try it with somebody else. If you're not comfortable with your child yet, try role playing it out with a friend first, and see how it goes, right? Or sometimes, even though we are parents, there are other trusted adults in our children's lives that they may feel comfortable with having a conversation. And so that might be your sister or your brother who your child is really close with. And so you can call on your community. You can call on them.
True.
I've learned a lot through homeschool. I am not the super best teacher for my daughter, so I'm thankful for her teacher. And same thing, I may not be the best person to talk to my daughter about all of her health, but she has a medical provider. She has a pediatrician. So we have to start those relationships with our healthcare providers to help us out when we're in times like that.
And I'm glad you said about community, because me growing up on the farm, I not only had my dad, but I had uncles and men that I looked up to. And it's almost as if they had this planned out, because everybody had that conversation with me and just making sure that I understood,
right,
my body parts. I understood about the consequences sometimes when you don't act appropriately or do things properly,
right,
when it comes to your sexuality. And so community, I think, is very important when it comes to raising our children.
It is.
It goes back to, it takes a village.
It does.
And so to the parents out there, even if you feel uncomfortable, maybe you should talk to some family members or people in your community that can have that conversation along with you.
Right.
Along with you, to make sure that your children are getting that information.
More importantly, I think our children appreciate our honesty. So if you go and say, hey, this is uncomfortable and shaky, as, talking about this, just as you. But let me just share my experience, right? And probably, what my parents taught me and what I don't want you to do. Because all my grandmother said was, don't get pregnant, right? So I held on to that for dear life, But she should have threw some other things in there too.
So what is the appropriate age that you should start talking to your child about sexual activity and STDs?
Okay, so at every, like I said before, at every age there's an appropriate conversation to have. And you can gauge that based on, the circle your child may be in, based on the questions your child comes to you. So you just have that, you just try to feel it out, see where they're at, where would be a comfortable point to start. Maybe you might be starting too basic, and then as you're talking, you'll say, you'll figure out, hey, I need to say a little bit more. So you just have to gauge your own child.
Gotcha. So it's kind of learn as you go. So I got that. So is there any other information that we should know about STDs?
Yeah, sure. So there's a bunch of myths out there about STDs. One is, birth control prevents STDs. That is not true. Birth control prevents birth. That is it.
Right.
That is it. Oral sex or anal sex is safe, or no sex at all. Well, if any one of these viruses, especially bacterial, gonorrhea, chlamydia, or syphilis, gets in an oral cavity or an anal cavity, that's an STD, right? So that means it's sex. Something happened there. And so what I want to say about that is, depending on the type of sex you have, when you go into your provider's office to get tested, you gotta be open, right? You gotta be open, because if you're having oral sex and you say, I'm worried about an STD, and the provider only lets you pee in the cup, they didn't accurately test in the right areas to see where the disease might be, right? So you gotta be open, even though it's uncomfortable. It's your health at the end of the day. They might not never see you again. You might not never walk back in there again, but your health is most important.
So to all the parents out there, to all the fathers, remember this: your health is the most important thing.
That's right.
And there was a term you used earlier. You said you plus you, or you.
You equals you.
You equals you.
Yes.
I like that. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to use that. You equals you. So take care of you first, okay? Make sure that. But the best advice I can give you is to the not at all part. Okay. It's the best advice I can give. But if you are participating in sexual activity, let's make sure that we know our status first.
That's right.
Both parties know
right.
the status first.
That's the most important.
And once you know the status first, because this is major for our health.
It is.
You know,
it is.
it's not just, we're not just saying stuff about sex. We're talking about our health.
Right.
Because that's important. And if you don't have a healthy you, how can you take care of your children and make sure that they're healthy?
That's right.
It's kind of like I'm unhealthy
Right.
and I'm telling my children, be healthy.
Right. They don't listen to what we say. They listen to what we do.
Right. So let's, you equals you. Take care of you first.
Take care of you first. That's correct. Keep going?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. No problem. So some other myths are STD testing, including HIV screening, is only for cheaters and players. Well, all those individuals who have HIV, they are not all cheaters and they're not all players.
That's true.
Okay, so you get tested, label or not. If he pulls out, the partner will not get pregnant or get an STD. If there is any of those, if there's blood, semen, or vaginal secretions, there is the possibility of transmitting an STD. Okay. If you get an STD, including HIV, there's nothing you can do about it. So untrue. We talked about that a lot today, right? We can make sure if your partner's positive, we can make sure they're on their meds, because undetectable means untransmittable, right? We ourselves can get on PrEP and prevent ourselves from having HIV. So
PrEP.
And PrEP.
Word for today is PrEP.
PrEP. Yes, most definitely. And lastly, you can tell by looking. You can tell by looking if you or someone else has an STD. No, they're gonna be looking good. They're gonna be smelling good, and they still might have an STD, right? You can't tell by looking. You can't tell by looking. These are all false.
Wow.
So prevention is important. STD has no looks. Bacterial ones can be given an antibiotic to be treated. And don't have sex when you're taking the antibiotic, right? Because you're taking the antibiotic to get rid of it. So it's not, if the medicine's not all gone, the virus is not all gone.
Got you. So the key now is to prevention, and we've given out a lot of information today. We just I hope that this information helps someone out there. I really hope that this information helps people communicate with their partner more.
Yep, all about that.
You know, communication is key. So I really hope that this information helps. I don't see anything wrong with a monogamous relationship.
Right.
You know, if it's going to prevent you from...
That's right. Mutually. You, all right, I can't be monogamous and they not. So mutually.
Mutual monogamous relationships, okay. Protection.
Yes.
Can't see anything wrong with that.
Right.
That's important. And so, because the key is, we want to prevent as many things as we can. Because it's a big world out here.
It is.
And it's a dangerous world.
It is.
And you can get into any and everything like that.
That's
and so we want to prevent as much as we can. Because at the end of the day, we want to be here, not just for our children, but for our grandchildren. And
That's right.
Like, we want to
right.
be parents is great. But
Right.
we want to be grandparents and great-grandparents if
Right.
it's possible. But if we're not taking care of us,
that's right.
then we might not get to that part of that grandparent. Because if you're not taking care of you sexually, then that means you're not taking care of you in other departments as well.
That's right. This is just one aspect.
Right.
One aspect of a person, right?
And so we want to make sure that you're taking care of every aspect of you so that we can ultimately get to the end goal. Whatever your end goal is, we want to get to that. And hopefully it takes a long time. That means we live a long time to get to that end goal.
Right.
So I encourage all of the fathers out there, all of the parents out there, to make sure that you take you into consideration every single day. You know, don't overlook you, don't discredit you, don't devalue you. Take every single second to make sure that you are protected at all costs, because you are the precious jewel.
That's right.
You are. And I promise you, nobody is going to respect you like you respect you.
Right.
They're not going to love you like you love you.
Right.
And they're not going to take care of your body like you take care of your body.
Most definitely.
So make sure at all costs you protect the precious gem that's you. We didn't preach that, but I
All
felt
right.
that just
Amen.
Amen. So as we're wrapping up here, Ms. Aisha, I really appreciate you coming and giving us that knowledge that you have given us today. And I know that you have some more that you would love to talk about or that you might want to talk about. I will provide the stage for you for anything that you want to say at the moment.
Awesome.
And then when you finish, then I'll come back and we'll wrap it up, okay?
Okay. All right. So, well, just in closing, I think James, you said it best. Taxes can be uncomfortable. We make it uncomfortable, but if we're talking about it on a consistent and regular basis, it becomes a normal conversation. And then we can't allow we just have to remember who we are, right? If you know who you are, then you will know what you will and won't accept, right? And so that just comes into, all of this. It comes into sex, it comes into mental health, it comes into substance abuse. And, at Caresouth, our mission is to improve the health and well-being of everyone. But most importantly, the well-being. And like Daniel and Marek said, like we come with a team approach. So yes, my department is sexual health and infectious diseases, but we have behavioral health, we have chiro, we have just primary care and pharmacy. It's all about the whole person. You have to take care of the whole person. Family support services. If you don't know where you're gonna lay your head or make some money, you can't even think about the things we're talking about here today. So it's important, and we're concerned about taking care of the whole person. And so I just thank you for this platform today.
You're welcome. And Precious Jules, I got a new name for them now, Precious Jules. Just want to remind you guys once again about the Papa John's partnership with Man to Man. And you can join us in making a difference in a father's life. And how you can do that is by purchasing a large 2-topping pizza and 2-liter drink at Papa John's. Now here's the code. It's MAN, M, the number 2, M, 13. If you give them that code when you purchase that pizza and that drink, then they would donate $1 to Man to Man. But we got another option as well. If you buy 2 large 2-topping pizzas, they would donate $3 to Man to Man. There's a promo code though. If you purchase the 2 large 2-topping pizzas and give them the code M2M23, that's M2M23, they would donate $3 to Man to Man. Now here are the locations. You got one location at 225 Cherokee Road in Florence. You have another location at 205C 2nd Loop Road in Florence. Then there's 435 North Gignord Drive in Sumter, South Carolina. And then there's 1035 West DeKalb Street in Camden, South Carolina. And those are the 4 locations. Also, you can see our Facebook page for more information. The very page that you're watching this on right now, you can view our page. We'll have this information posted on our page. If you want other information, you also may visit www.man2manfathers.com. That's MAN, the number 2, MAN, fathers.com for more information. If you want to seek information on child support, visitations, maybe court dates, whatever information you need as far as being a father, we'll have that information on our page. Also, make sure you tune in next Monday, same time, 12 noon, for another conversation. And we'll talk about health, we'll talk about parenting, we'll talk about healthy relationships, and we'll talk about economic stability. Again, I am James Hayes, Man to Man, intervention specialist, as well as health interventionist here at Man to Man Fatherhood Initiative. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes,
I was about to say tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us this great information. We really appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank
All right.
you.
So to you guys, thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it.